Hi guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. Doodle Noodle here as always, and yeah, I've been gone for the last week. If you are subscribed and you've gotten used to seeing a video on Wednesdays and Fridays, last week I disappeared because I was having some troubles with my Wi-Fi. So yeah, I'm going to be uploading 2 videos of each this week, and we're just getting back to tutorials here. So today we're talking about how to use references. So I haven't seen a lot of videos on it on YouTube. I have seen a few people cover it, but everyone's got their own way of talking about it, and there are a few topics that I felt were missed, so I wanted to go over that here. So first things first is what kind of references you should use, what defines like a good reference and a bad reference. So you'll see I've got a couple of pictures here. I'm just making a few layers and stuff, and then we'll get started with it. But one thing that you should check when you get a reference, especially if you're a beginner or if you're at that point where you have to copy the portrait 100%, otherwise, stylizing it just looks weird, then you want to make sure that your reference isn't copyrighted. Meaning, like, if you try to make your art into a product, you're not going to get into trouble for it. And if it does have like a link to the owner of that photo, you could always ask that person, like, can I use your picture as a reference, to make my own art? I'll show you the results. If they say yes, then fine, but don't just go and do it, and then you're going to pay for it later. So there are a couple of sites that you can find that are great for copyright-free references. Some of the pictures I have here are copyright-free. As a disclaimer, I'm not going to be using this or these pictures for any kind of product. I'm just using them for display purposes to help you guys out. So yeah, we'll get started. So you can see I'm already labeling them good, not good, good. And then we'll go over a little bit later why that one portrait of that woman and that old guy are not good references. So let's get started with the first step though. When you're taking your reference, you don't want to trace along the contours. You don't want to just copy over. You want to break down what you got. You're looking for a simplified mask of the face, because that's going to teach you or help you build up your reference library, visual library in your head. And then you're going to learn what looks good. You don't need to know all the mathematical proportions and all that, but I like to put them in. It does help sometimes, like dividing the face up into thirds and knowing this and that and some anatomy. It does help if you want to build up, but you don't need to know it. And you don't need to know the names of everything. You just need to know where they go and how they work. So starting off, we've got the eyebrows and the chin. They always run parallel. The only time that's not going to happen is if your picture is taken where there is a lot of perspective, and then they're going to taper similarly. And then the next thing I like to do is trace out the cheekbones. Okay, so just from the corner of the face down to the front of the chin, and that just helps me get like a good idea of what counts as the front plane of the face, and then the side planes will be the cheeks and the jaw, right? And then the next thing is, well, actually you can do this first, or I recommend you should do this first, but I usually skip that step and I do it a little bit later, is to run the center line of the face, because that's going to help you figure out the angle of your face. So is it completely vertical or is it slightly tilted? So look for that, and that's also going to be perpendicular to the line that you use to dissect the eyebrows and the chin, right? So after that, we're finding, the jawline. So you're going to do that on all your pictures. Now, if we simplify that cheekbone line to the chin and the jawline, they form a kind of triangle, and you'll see a little bit later. That does help a lot because that's just a plane that you can use. And then you copy out the back of the head. So that's also something, like, you can do these in any order, but overall you want to have that general mask before you start moving on to details and complications. So I'm going to use this reference here with this like full-on frontal face, and it's much easier to break down. And yeah, we can go over it. Like I say, just find the eyebrows and the chin, find the cheekbones. You can separate the nose as well and the forehead into different proportions. But what you don't want to do is try to put in too much detail too fast. So you can see I haven't tried to line out the nose or the eyes and stuff. That you do after. Right, so I'm going to use this last portrait here before we drop into a time lapse, and you can see me do the same thing on 2 other ones. But we're going to make a mask on this male portrait, and like I said, it's a little bit angled at this one, so it's easier to see how we use the cheekbones and bring that forward down to the front of the chin. That shows you the front plane of the face, and then you can trace the proportions from the eyebrows to the nose down the side of the face to find where the ears would be, but you don't need to do that, and sometimes it's going to change depending on the person, so it's also good to use your references for that. So we'll draw the center line, we're going to use the eyebrows and the chin. So if you look at this picture, the eyebrows and the chin are kind of shrinking off in perspective, so they're not 100% parallel. So after we find the jawline, we do that, and then we need to do the nose. Like I say, bring it along the side. Try to imagine how that plane changes angles and bring that down. You'll find the ear there. But yeah, last thing is eye sockets. Eye sockets really help with placing the eyes for the person. And when you use references and you draw this, you're going to figure out more how to draw that from different angles. So they're going to recede. On some people they're going to be bigger or smaller or different shapes. And the more you build your visual library for that, the more easy it becomes to create a realistic portrait. And then the last thing that I do is the nose. So if you've checked out my other tutorials, I'll leave a link for it in the description, and there's going to be one up on the right here, is the nose anatomy and how I break that down to a diamond shape and like a little arrow shape. Now we're going to use that to create a 3-dimensional form. So it's already done here. I'm doing it in blue, and that shows you the alar of the nose and the wings of the nose and then some of the cartilage. So that diamond shape, you can bring it back and make a sort of triangle shape down the face, and that links up perfectly with the eye socket. So you look for that in your faces, and that's going to help you a lot also for shadowing, because that really turns into a shadow shape later on. It's me bumping my table. Okay, so if I take away the previous layer first, you'll see how that works out. But yeah, anyways, then just a few extra things. You can further lay out that front map of the face by, figuring out where the forehead is. But anyways, let's drop into a time lapse and then we'll come back just now. Right guys, if you are enjoying this video so far and you're finding it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like down below if you're not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, share this with some people, tell them come watch this video if you know people who could use this kind of tutorial. Alright, let's get on to part 2 of this tutorial, and that is about choosing good references. Okay, so I've got them labeled here already: good, not good, good, not good, but usable, and good. So why is the portrait of the woman on the left good and the one on the right not? It's because of lighting. So you'll see here I'm already labeling out a little arrow. When you choose a portrait, or when you choose a reference, you want one that's got simple directional lighting that easily maps out the planes of the face. If you have one that has too many lighting angles, it's going to make it hard to define the shapes if you're not already an experienced portrait artist. So as a beginner, you're going to mess up a lot if you choose stuff like that. So choose one that has a definite angle, and then find the shadow shapes. Use general simple forms, and then find that. So as you can see, I'm already tracing along the shadow shapes of this woman's face, and it already defines the light angle. It's from the right, there's a cast shadow on the left, so everywhere that the light is shining from, the shadows are going to be on the opposite end. And there are smaller details that you can pick out, and you can build up the complexity, or you can find the smaller shadow shapes as you go, but start with those big general ones that really define the form. On other parts of the body, so here we've got the shoulders. You can see there is a light from the other end coming, and it's creating like a little bit of a core shadow on the shoulders, and that's fine, but we're finding the shadow shapes and defining the form, and 2 light sources isn't too bad. But let's go on to the not good one. Why is this one bad? And it's because, like I said, there's too many light angles. There's too much light, and there should be a shadow on the chin, from the chin to the neck, casting down, but there's not. So how do you define that if you're a beginner? You usually use like some hard ass line, and it looks terrible. So I've got a few circlings of what would be shadow shapes, or what you would see. Like those are the ones that we see, but that doesn't define the form properly. It's a little bit here and a little bit there, and again, usually what people will do is they'll make a tone there, and it just flattens out the whole face. It looks dirty, it looks gross, and we want to avoid that. So this is a bad reference. Don't get references that are done with photo shoots with omnidirectional lighting, because it's just going to mess up your sense of form. Alright, now let's move on to the man. Again, super simple lighting setup. You can see it's from the left. It defines all of these shadow shapes, and those cheekbones come back into play. This man's got amazing cheekbones. But you can easily define a nice triangle there where the eyes are. Figure it out, and then you can draw up the shadow shapes and define an entire region of darkness, and that's going to it's really going to bring out that 3-dimensional form to the whole face. Now you can trace along the contours, like from the lips to the cheeks. I wouldn't recommend doing that as a beginner. Like, break it down a bit more. Do step 1 first. But this will just help you later on when you're trying to create a form while you're shading. So think of this as a how to draw portraits tutorial and a shading tutorial for faces. It makes it a little bit more interesting. So you're getting 2 for 1. Yeah, don't worry. It's not going to be just one tutorial. I still owe you guys one for last week. So I'm going to just add in a lot of grays here, so I can show you just how easy it is to find and define that form with this guy's face because of that single directional lighting. So you can add it in here. You can take a look, and just look how much depth that adds. And it looks okay because I just found a bunch of general simple shapes, and now I'm shading them in. And you can do that, and I highly recommend that you do that as a beginner. Don't try to do the details. Look for the general forms. This really brings out that form. Look how much contrast I can bring to this picture, and I'm not distorting it, literally, just darkening the shadows. Okay, I'm just going to fill in these shadow shapes for this woman. It's just an extra thing. I really enjoy doing this. I'm not going to do it on the other one because again it's kind of a mess. And if we do that here, if you're careful and you already have an understanding of anatomy and like that's where the eye socket should be, then you know what to look for with this kind of portrait. But it's still something you should avoid, because if you make something too dark, you're going to mess up the entire shape of the face because it's not easily highlighted. What you can do is you can mess with the lighting setup if you're good enough at rendering lighting. Change the lighting setup for that. Take a look at the anatomy and then break it down and then change the lighting. So yeah, this old guy. So why is it not too good but still usable? It's because the defined shadow shapes aren't, they don't have hard edges. So you can see there is a single directional light, but there's a lot of reflective light that's coming, and you can see it in his beard, you can see it on his nose. So his hat would cast a shadow over his face, kind of like this, going into his eye sockets and over his nose. But because of that reflective light, it really breaks up that direct shadow, and it makes it hard to see. And as a beginner, you're going to tend to mess that up a little bit. So stay away from these kinds of drawings until you have a better understanding of what looks good and how anatomy works. Here I'm just adding a little bit of white stuff, well, white lighting, just to show you, that's the reflective light, and that is what will mess you up. But this is generally what it would look like if you were more experienced and you could play with the lighting. So here I have hardened that line and created a stronger cast shadow over where his eye sockets and stuff would be catching some depth, It looks cool. You can do that once you're better at it. Now, I really love this drawing here, or this portrait here. It's a great reference. It's got direction. It's also black and white, so it's easy to spot those tones and shadow shapes. So I'm going to use like a red gray, so it's easier to see what I'm doing here. And again, we're going to find the simple general shadow shapes, and then we're going to fill them in, and you'll see what a difference it makes having a good reference versus like a not too good reference. Right, so here I am going to trace that. So you go down the forehead, along the cheeks, bring it down to the chin again. You can come up. This guy's a little bit chubby, always got like a hanging face, so just bring that up. And then also the nose, just got to find the shape or the shadow shape of that nose. So you can use that diamond and triangle again, and then the wings of the nose, and then the eye sockets. So we already broke that down, and now we're going to use that breakdown to understand better how to shade this kind of face. So yeah, and then just some lighter areas. So you can see there's a lot of difference, and there's a lot of, how to put it, like a difference in tones on his face. It's nice. You get a lot of variation, and you can do like a strong contrast, and then so you have your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights there. And I've also traced out the highlights, not the highlights, the midtones, sorry. So yeah, there are the shadows in like a red gray. Let's quickly color them in there. So I'm actually kind of new to using Photoshop. This is actually going to be like the first video where I do this kind of thing, but I will be doing more digital type tutorials in the future. They're still going to be traditional media friendly, but why am I doing it like this? It's a lot easier to teach you like this, and it's a lot better represented. And also I need a bit of practice using my new drawing pad. My hands are still a little bit shaky because the pencil tends to pick up every single mark that you make, or like if you go straight, but I'm getting the hang of it quite quickly. So here are the midtones. Okay, so you can see them, they're there. Nice and general shape from the bottom of the chin right up to the eye socket. Beautiful. Look at that. If I had to take away this reference now, you'd already have the shape of this man's face. It's not a problem. I could do that. I'm not going to, because this helps you understand it, but if you're drawing without being able to like draw directly over the reference, you can have it on the side, you can break it down. You can do the same thing. Look for those general shapes. Don't go into detail, and then you won't mess up the small proportions. It's a lot easier to rectify a mistake in your big general shape, and it's a lot easier to see that mistake than to rectify like small details. So stick to this kind of thing, man. It'll help you so much. Anyways, God, I love drawing. It's so nice. This art is fun. It's very fun. It's one of my favorite things to do. Right, so we've got all of our portraits here. We've got the lighting picked out. You can now see. So you can use this. Like I say, don't trace. Don't try to do the details. Break down your portraits. Find the shadow shapes. And you'll be good to go. Now we're going to take what we've learned and we're going to go over to a completely blank slate, and we're going to build a face of our own without any reference. And I'll show you what it does to build up that visual library and know what looks good and know what seems right, compared to trying to measure out all the proportions and know everything. Again, start with that circle. So when you're breaking down your references, you can do them in any order, but it usually helps to start with a circle when you're drawing your own picture. And then you do that middle line to decide where is the face, what's the angle of the face. Is he looking up, is he looking forward, is it a 3/4 angle? And then you find the eyebrows, and then you just go through it. Thank you for watching the video. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this, and I really hope that it helped you. And again, if you're new to the channel and you're not subscribed yet, subscribe, okay? I want you to see more of my videos. See, so I know how to find the eye sockets, and I know how to use the nose. That, like I said, that diamond and the triangle shape helps so much to decide or to figure out the angle of the eye socket and how far into the face it is. And I would define the front plane of the face and the jawline. Okay, so one thing to note, with the cheekbones, they always wrap around the eye socket, so it's like two C shapes, one slightly bigger than the other, and they go together. So thank you guys again for watching, and if you found this video helpful and you're new to the channel, for your first time popping in, consider liking and subscribing. Or actually, don't consider liking, just like it, okay? And then consider subscribing. Think about it, and then do it, okay? Because you're going to get more content later on, and we're going to get more in detail, and I'm just going to help you more and more, and you're going to become an amazing artist, because you're going to be using really cool tutorials. And yeah, otherwise, I'm just going to say thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.